We're talking about Lisa Frankenstein, which is a dark comedy film. Yeah, but why don't we hop in and tell you about Lisa Frankenstein? So, Lisa Frankenstein is from 2024, and it's about a coming of rage love story about a teenager and her crush who happens to be a corpse. After a set of horrific circumstances brings him back to life, the two embark on a journey to find love, happiness, and a few missing body parts. And it's directed by Zelda Williams and written by Diablo Cody, who wrote Jennifer's Body, which is covered several times now. So
we're not allowed to cover it again.
Yeah, we are not. We did twice. We did it. It's done. I think you get it. If you don't, it's not for us anymore.
Someone else can say, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I very much believe Lisa lives in the same world. You know, a generation before Jennifer. Just living her truth, right? So Lisa Frankenstein is a neon-soaked, delightfully twisted horror comedy set in the pastel suburban bliss of the late 1980s that is a journey of self-discovery. The world was definitely giving Edward Scissorhands. Like, not quite as heavy-handed as Edward Scissorhands, where it's like, look at the picturesque world, and he's this little goth boy. Nothing felt like that either. Like, she's misunderstood, but I never felt like it was like being hammered in so hard. She like became more misunderstood as she went.
With time.
But at its heart, Lisa is an awkward, grief-stricken teenager who feels like she doesn't fit in anywhere, not at school or home, and certainly not in her sleepy, image-obsessed town. Very cliche representation. And her classmates are shallow, her family's solutions to her struggles are rushed and tone-deaf, and her only solace is found wandering the local cemetery, where she pours her heart out to the grave of a handsome, long-dead Victorian man who was worthy enough to get a whole bust of himself.
Fun fact, I was also a middle school / high schooler who would walk around the cemetery, so I think that is funny.
Yeah, I mean,
awkward. Dancing around the cemetery like a weirdo.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a lot of nods to Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, who was birthed the sci-fi and horror genres. She was the first to do it, and she was a child. So when she was young, she would wander around cemeteries and make the rubbings of the names. So it's very, like, you know, referencing that. Because her name is not Frankenstein or Shelley. But she has an Aunt Shelley that she references.
Oh, funny.
But things take a turn for the undead one stormy night when a bolt of lightning strikes her favorite grave, resurrecting the corpse of her Victorian crush. And disoriented and barely stitched together, the creature, as Lisa dubs him, stumbles his way to her house, where Lisa, proving she's not your average squeamish teen, decides to take him in, clean him up, and maybe, just maybe, make him her perfect companion. After all, if she can't find someone who gets her, why not make one? Yep. And I think that scene where she finds him is one of, like, the best parts. And, like, in her just running and just destroying everything and just, like, trying, and, like, the neighbors are like, yeah, that's just the weird kid.
Yeah, like, literally, you said, like, she could be getting murdered, and they're just like, she's just weird.
She, like, is, she's screaming. Sometimes kids scream. Yeah. And then, like, eventually when she find the shoe phone, which it was giving very Juno, just like her just like slumped next to him, like, okay. I see. Yeah, we just gotta, this is not the situation I thought it was. Which is cute. I think she's very endearing as, like, a main character. Like, definitely unorthodox, but still relatable. Yeah. Like, just for all the weirdo kids out there, she's just like us. Yeah. So then we cue the classic 80s makeover montage as Lisa gives the creature a modern update with clothes that scream mall chic, while he silently endures her questionable styling choices. There's, like, the robe she really likes and silly things. It's cute. And as overdone as the montage has been, it was still pretty cute. It was like Earth Girls Are Easy. Okay. They turn all the aliens into hot guys. But I think what's really interesting is she's dressing him, but then in turn he dresses her. So in this like hilarious twist, the next morning she is dressed in like a bold Madonna inspired ensemble that screams confidence and individuality, and it's him being like, girl, like you got to work with what you got. Because what are you doing? And so then all of a sudden she's got this confidence, and it really just marks the beginning of Lisa's personal transformation, as her new look empowers her to shed her insecurities and start expressing her in ways that she never dared before. So like we said at the beginning, she's helping him put his body together, but he's helping her put her emotions together.
Yep.
So what follows is a quirky and surprisingly sweet friendship between Lisa and the creature. And despite being nonverbal and missing an ear temporarily, the creature becomes a perfect listener for Lisa's grief and frustrations, a grief that no one else is listening to. And she opens up about that pain and loneliness, finding solace in someone who, despite being undead, seems to genuinely understand her. And their bond grows deeper as they navigate small-town gossip, judgmental neighborhoods, and a few accidental murders.
Yep.
What's a good undead love story without a little collateral damage, especially of the people who wronged you? Like, everyone wins, like, besides the villains. In this. And, like, at the end, he was not a villain. No. They just had a goal they needed to do.
Yeah. I just wish they didn't have to hurt Taft specifically. The rest of them was like, all right. Collateral damage. Her, I'm like, oh, she was like sweet though. She just wasn't the brightest bulb, but that's not her fault.
She really was.
She was sweet though.
Very innocent little girl. But as their friendship blossoms and the body count rises, Lisa is faced with tough questions about identity loss and what it truly means to find connection in a disconnected world. And by the end, she's not just embracing her quirky, macabre side, she's fully owning it, advocating for herself and proving that sometimes all you need is to transform into a little self-expression, a lot of courage, and yes, maybe an undead best friend who doesn't mind helping you bury a body or two.
Yep.
And use what you can. With its campy humor, heartfelt moments, and a generous splash of gore, Lisa Frankenstein is a love letter to misfits, weirdos, and anyone who's ever felt like they didn't quite belong. Right? We are the weirdos, mister. Yep. It's a hilarious offbeat romp through grief, friendship, and the messy process of growing up. Right? It's a coming of age. Proving that sometimes finding yourself means raising a little hell or maybe a corpse. And by literally creating someone to fit her ideal, Lisa learns about her own desires, insecurities, and the consequences of trying to shape others or herself to meet unrealistic expectations. Because I think like as funny and goofy and like silly as some of this premise can be, and how like he's approached, like he's still like she's putting him together. But it was always, he had his own voice the whole time. Yeah. And he, like, gave her his opinion in the ways that he could to her. And he looked out for her. He, like, cared for her. Not just because she was the one who would listen to him, but I think he just genuinely got her. But I think really there is a lot of heart behind this film that, like, first time watching it, you're like, what's going on? This is so silly. But then you start listening and you're like, wait a second, this one actually kind of hurt. Because they really like the whole thing is like her grief is that her mom had passed away and she died by being like slasher movie murdered. Yeah. She got like Halloweened. Okay. Yeah. And like this crazy, and it's super silly the way that it happens because it's dark comedy and it's like, ooh, slapstick. But then you're like, wait, her mom like just died.
Yeah. Literally, yeah. And then the dad's like moving on like super fast. Everyone's like, don't feel grief.
Yeah. They like get over it. Yeah. Yeah. And she's in the middle of this very pivotal moment of her life. So it's like, it's very flashy in your face. And then like there are moments where it really hurts and it's hard. And even like you said, Taff, who is her stepsister, it should be, the quintessential like popular girl, whatever. And she's not. She is popular and she's very aware of her power as a popular, beautiful girl, but she's also so incredibly sweet. Yeah. Like she really cares for her in the way that she can. And she also cares for her mom, who's an awful person. Like, yeah. It's really sweet. And in an article on Collider titled "There's So Much More to Lisa Frankenstein Than Camp 80s Horror," writer Juliana Salinas offers, The love Lisa finds helps her out of the depths of her grief, and she gets her happy ending even if it hurts the people she left behind. While she is able to spend the rest of her afterlife with the creature, she leaves her father and stepsister and the families of the victims behind in the depths of mourning and unanswered questions. The end of Lisa Frankenstein, much like the grieving process itself, is complicated, right? Because she has to not live there. She has to give up on a whole life because of decisions she made. But at the same time, she's embracing a life that she feels she's better earned. So overall, Lisa Frankenstein, filled with biting humor, campy thrills, and heartfelt moments, is a quirky tale about self-discovery, acceptance, and the often messy process of creating a connection in a world that feels alienating. They what's a Victorian man going to know about the world?
It's not the modern one,
Yeah, but what I really wanted to talk about for my section in this film, because I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about grief, and Kat's going to offer some more information on it, because I think there's always a different way to look at it, right? And I think there's a lot of fun of Lisa Frankenstein. Like I said, there's a lot of references to Mary Shelley. Like there's the one where she has the massager, massager, and she's like, "This is for my Aunt Shelley." She said it would like liven me up or something. And just like, haha. But things like that are just like super sweet, and clearly someone who appreciates that history. And I think it's also important to highlight that a woman or a girl started the horror and sci-fi genre. You know, Lisa is the same age as Mary Shelley when she was trapped in a house with a bunch of other writers on a stormy night, where she concocted this, like, why you're playing God kind of message, which I don't think really plays into this. She really wasn't like, I'm playing God. She was just like, oops. I think, and that's the thing, I think, like, it's the moment where she summons him. He gets it's electrocution, and then he comes out, and she's just very candid with him, and she says, when I said I wanted to be with you, it wasn't that I wanted you here alive, it's that I wanted me there dead. Like, I don't want to be here. And like that's like the loudest cry for help. And like we just have to keep moving with the film and like the silliness, but there's always those moments where like we come back to her being like, I'm ready to go, right? And that like that idea of teen suicide and feeling so hopeless and just kind of like pushing through and performing despite all that is the crux of that, and also the crux of Heathers, which I'm going to talk about as well. But I think this idea of like the very heavy things that are placed on young people, right? In when we're treating it this way, in this comedic way, can make it a little bit easier to talk about. And I hope that's what it does. Like, I hope the ending of her not being here anymore isn't seen as the answer, but seen as a question.
Well, it's kind of like a lot of our teen shows or movies that we were watching. Like, it's like a funny talk to me. Where you're dealing with the same themes, it's just presented so differently, and as a way to make it like easier to digest. And I agree, like the end, it's a little scary because you're like, I don't want to promote people not wanting to be here, but I do want to promote them being their most authentic selves. So it's like, in that way, she was doing that. She technically was still alive. Kind of like I saw the TV glow, like, you know, like you had to go bury your
she had to let a
version of herself. To come be herself uninhibited by like people who didn't accept her or see her as she was. So.
If we can, you know, media literacy it and say, you know, she was not killing these people, she was killing these relationships, right? She was letting these relationships to die. She was taking what she needed from those relationships and moving on. And then she was letting that version of herself die to then go be her most true, authentic self. And that's what I hope people will see. Or they'll just like, oh, it's cute, they're in love. Like, do that.
Sure.
Like, even do that, you know? But I do think that is an interesting take, because it is like, you know, she's struggling with this idea of like wanting to unalive herself, and it was her mom who was taken from her. And so very similar to that, except like her addiction isn't like, you know, being possessed. It's this undead person and murdering people. So like so you know, we get the hands that were dealt. But I'll talk about how, again, and we've talked about this before, but when your teen angst bullshit has a body count. So there is a beloved horror subgenre that thrives at the intersection of camp and coming of age, and is the dark comedy slasher. And the campy, dry genre perfectly serves as a metaphor for the emotional turbulence of adolescence. We got hormones, awkwardness, and the messy process of growing up, and they're all reflected in the chaotic, undead antics that unfold. And the very different ways, you know, even though that this film takes place at the same time as Heathers, the fact that it was made now, I think, influences the way that it's told and what it's addressing. Because I think the 80s was like a fun outfit to wear. I don't know if it really was a cultural necessity to the themes the way that Heathers was. So at first thought, Heathers comes to mind when you think of dark comedy teens, right? With its razor sharp satire of high school cliques and the complicated relationship young people have with self-harm, relationships with each other, their family, and essentially coming into adulthood. Then you have Diablo Cody's other film, Jennifer's Body, that also fits smugly within this framework with its bloody feminist revenge tale wrapped in a demonic possession and unrequited sapphic love story. It's not quite dark comedy in the same way. Like, it doesn't have that same biting wit, but I think it exists in the same space of like teens, graphic violence and horror, and still comedy, because Jennifer's Body's hilarious. I thought you only killed boys. I go both ways. Like, come on. No. Cody's newest film, created with Zelda Williams, is the newest contribution to the genre of teen angst and growing body counts. And so Lisa Frankenstein, being about this lonely teen resurrecting a Victorian dream guy with a tanning bed, shares that love of dark humor, rebellious protagonists, and twisted takes on teen life that we find in those other films. These films, this genre of films, share an unapologetic, gore-soaked approach to serious themes, right? So alienation, conformity, toxic relationships, earning their place in the hallowed halls of camp. So just, here's a very serious thing that we could just all cry about. And then this really absurd, like, how does the body work way? And it kind of deconstructs something that is otherwise really taboo and hard to approach. And instead it's kind of like, let's have this kind of fun conversation about it. Like, do you ever feel like this? You know? Heathers dissects high school power dynamics with biting wit. Jennifer's Body slays, literally, while exploring betrayal, friendship, and female empowerment. And Lisa Frankenstein reanimates suburban loneliness into a quirky love story that's equal part grotesque and heartfelt. And at the heart of each story are the outsiders who are pushing against societal expectation, right? So in Heathers, we have Veronica, who's a frustrated intellectual. And she's not really that intellectual, but I think it's like, she thinks she is. And she's just suffocating in this world of cliques. Like, she has to perform, and she's tired of it. She's so over that she's better than this, while also not being better than it at all, which is really where the beauty comes from. And then Needy in Jennifer's Body is the underestimated best friend who's living in the shadow of her more confident best friend forever, except it is so much more than that. Right? It's that she's, you know, both, you know, losing that friend, but she also like never really had her, because she was doing the same thing that everybody else was doing, which was like commodifying her, putting her on this pedestal and taking ownership of her. And she never really had like Jennifer never got to own herself until she became a demon, which is crazy because she was occupied by somebody else. And then Lisa and Lisa Frankenstein is the awkward girl next door navigating grief and a craving for connection, while everyone in her life has a rushed, unsupportive answer to how she handles the grief from losing her mother. They're like, you gotta just get moving. And she has those heart-to-hearts with him, where she explains, like, they just expect me to move on. Like, I think of in Princess Diaries, when her friend's like, it's been a year or something, where it's like, it's been 4 months, get over your dad dying. It's just like, what? Just like, she's supposed to be the friend.
Legitimately like that, though. I've had that literal thing said to me while I was at work. Like, I was 20, I don't even know, but there's like, like, it's been however long, like, it's not cute anymore, move on. And I was like, okay,
no,
yeah, people suck. Oh,
yeah, because you know, like, what people often say, right, is like, grief doesn't go away. You just learn to live with it, right? Like, it's a hole that shrinks, but it's still there. Or you learn how to, like, put things around it, and you just kind of like, you just learn to live in this new way that is with loss. Like, you live with loss, which can be really, like, a beautiful thing too, right? To love someone so much that you're affected by loss in that way. But it is something that, like, it is not a rush. You do not just get over it, right? Not if that person meant something to you, like a parent, or like a friend, or like, honestly, anyone, right, that mattered in any way, shape, or form to you that you lose. It's absolutely valid to miss them for as long as you do, and to be, like, mourning that, going through that loss. So for anyone, especially for her dad to have moved on the way that he did, it was super sketch.
I was like, he murdered her, because, like, you know, it's always the husband or whatever. Is what they say. So it was just like, I was like, he moved on way too fast. You cannot convince me he didn't do it, but whatever.
He was such a regular man. His wife, Carla Gugino, was giving, like, the fiance from Parent Trap, like, I'm gonna send you away to a boarding school. You know, like, evil stepmom, cliche, but she did it, like, so well. She
agreed.
Oh, dude, the her oatmeal scene or whatever, no.
Oh my god, I literally covered my eyes, because I was like, if I actually I was like, this was the scariest part of the movie. Like,
this like, killing her, fine, okay, but this was the biggest betrayal.
I was
like, you crossed the line.
Even thinking about it, I was like,
you crossed the line.
Gross. It's
anyone who's seen that, just know that it's awful. So what's really important about this genre existing in horror, right, is the way that they can approach these really heavy topics and having it be dark comedy, right? Like, we're, by making it even more dramatic and absurd, like, it just makes it that much more accessible and relatable, even the fact that it's absurd, right? Like, when we're allowed to laugh at some of those really heavy things, it can help us get closer to healing from them. And so each character, like, being these outsiders, right, feels out of place and has to decide to write their own narrative, and whether that's, you know, dismantling the high school hierarchies, or confronting a possessed best friend, or building the perfect boyfriend from the corpses of those who harmed you, each answer leaves a trail of bodies in its wake. But the bodies are symbolic of letting those relationships die. Not the people, but the relationships that are the toxic behavior, we're laying those to rest.
The unintended but necessary consequences of our actions.
Yes. And of course, like, quintessential for the dark comedy coming of age is the messy relationships, right? So each film brings a dark, unconventional romance to the table. So, like, Veronica had that really morally murky love affair with JD, and Heather's that's as dangerous as it is thrilling. It's pretty relatable. Like, we've had a lot of people have a toxic boyfriend, and you look back and you're like, why did I do that? But the person at that time, you got your blinders on. Or you're thrilled by it. There's, like, an excitement to it. You feel at a level chosen for it, right? Like, or I can fix him. I can literally build him, I could get him a new ear. Okay, it's fine. He's such a good listener. With just the one, imagine if he had two. And I mean, what I really like about Heather's was, like, Veronica's sexuality was really embraced. Like, it was never, that wasn't the problem. Yeah. That she was like sexually active with JD. It was like this entrapment that she had, like, and being led astray by JD's ideologies, right? Yeah. In Jennifer's Body, the friendship turned rivalry between Jennifer and Needy drips with tension, both emotional and, let's be honest, very sapphic. But, and that's like Needy's point of view, which if you decide Needy is the protagonist of that, that's her journey, is like confronting her. If you are like me and you see Jennifer as the protagonist, there's also that the toxic expectations that are placed upon Jennifer to be this sexual being, all while still being a high school girl. Yeah. Right. And it's no wonder that she's preying on these boys, or the people who hurt her. Like, she is like one of the most tragic characters I can think of. And it like breaks my heart when I think of like who Jennifer is and what happened to her, and how like we don't get her version. Like, she's in the background just hurting. She doesn't get to be Lisa Frankenstein. And then you have Lisa Frankenstein, who has a Gothic undead love story that's weirdly sweet and hilariously grotesque. And she's just a complicated girl who's obsessed with the macabre, like I said, making those rubbings on gravestones, and like, you know, she's odd, but still approachable, I think is important. And she is just very much in great need of unconditional love and support, that she's not getting. Like, I mean, Taff like definitely like loves and supports her, but not in a way that she needs. Like, her dad isn't. Yeah. And this new stepmom has a lot of conditions, right? Yeah. So that's all she needs. And, you know, to lose her virginity before she dies, which she feels is imminent. These relationships dig into themes of power, connection, and betrayal. And then another key component to these teen tales is the visuals, right? So all three films embraced a heightened aesthetic that goes it like, it's heightened gore, and it's like heightened like, here's our look. So like Heather's dazzles with its bold bright colors and exaggerated 80s fashion, where the characters outfits act as both armor and masks, symbolizing the performative roles they play in high school's rigid social hierarchy. But even the parents wear specific things, and the words that they use, like all of that is just like a hyperactive version of that time period. Jennifer's Body, the aesthetic shifts to small town grunge and bloody carnage, which really mirrors Jennifer's struggle as she exists in a paradox. She's both too old and too young for the traumas that she endures. And the setting, wardrobe, and circumstances underscore the impossible image she's forced to uphold, blending vulnerability with the illusion of power. Because she's like, oh, I'm killing everyone, I'm in power. And it's like, girl. Yeah. You're literally, but like, someone's literally inside of you. Yeah. Like, I'm so sorry, babe. Tragic heroes. I wish there an alternative world where she's Lisa Frankenstein, right? Yeah. And even that has like, you know, the early 2000s fashion. Like, we all had those little jackets, your little pink jacket. The whole look, I'm like, oh, it brings me back. And then Lisa Frankenstein, right, is a vibrant neon kitsch celebration of the 1980s iconography and pop culture, but beneath its hyper colorful facade lies a poignant story about the deep impact of grief and loneliness. And each film uses its visual style to amplify that tone, making every frame pop with personality. And most importantly, the films are violent. The blood and gore are a stark contrast to the dry humor, right? And Heather's, all the murders are dressed as suicides, which is like the dark comedy take on teen culture, and what was very fascinating at that time period. But they're still very absurd suicides. It's not just a regular run-of-the-mill suicide. It has to be this big performance. And the funerals are a big performance. Jennifer's Body really ramps up the gore with Jennifer's demon-fueled killing spree, blending horror with feminist undertones and her like really cool succubus mouth, and all of that. I was like, I get, it seems fun. And then Lisa Frankenstein takes a more playful approach, using its undead antics to explore self-discovery and healing, while delivering plenty of laughs. And at the core, all three films tackle themes of identity, rebellion, and the pressures of conformity. And together, these films prove that teen stories don't have to be bubblegum and prom queens. With their sharp humor, unapologetic weirdness, and subversive twists, these 3 movies offer audiences a darker, smarter, and more thrilling take on growing up. If you love one, you're bound to find something to obsess over in the others. If dark comedy is your thing, and I'm still figuring out if that is for me.
I think I like it. I don't know, to be honest. I think I just I didn't go in with the right headspace. I think I expected it to be more serious than it was, or like I just didn't know anything about it really, other than like I'd heard that it was good. That's all I heard about it. So yeah. I think I
want to watch it like more times.
Yeah,
like I would own this.
And I feel like it's going to be important in like a few years. Like I feel like people are going to like look back and be like, that movie was the movie of the 2024s. When did it come out? Was that now?
2020s? Yeah.
2024,
like, You know, I think, it might be like the next generation's Jennifer's Body in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to talk about that, and they're going to be like, what even is Jennifer's Body? And then we're going to be here, back in my day.
Yeah, we're going to be like the people who are like, you've never seen Heather's? And we'll be like, wow, you've never seen Jennifer's Body? That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
You can put respect on Kara Kusama's name.